Anthropic's new models are quietly outperforming ChatGPT on almost every benchmark, and the AI world is pretending it didn't happen. I'm Mark, and in the last 2 weeks, something shifted in the AI landscape that barely made a headline. While everyone was obsessing over OpenAI's next move, Anthropic dropped Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and then Claude 3.5 Haiku, and they're not just competitive, they're actually winning on the metrics that matter most. Let me be specific. On the MMLU benchmark, which tests broad knowledge across science, math, history, and more, Claude 3.5 Sonnet is now scoring in the 88% range. GPT-4 Turbo sits at around 86%. That's not a typo. On coding tasks, the gap is even sharper. When you run the same prompts through both models side by side, Claude is returning cleaner code with fewer errors. On math reasoning, something that's been OpenAI's stronghold for years, Anthropic is now matching or beating them. And here's the thing nobody's talking about. Claude is doing it while being cheaper and faster. So why hasn't this exploded all over Twitter? Why isn't every AI newsletter screaming about it? I think there are a few reasons. First, Anthropic doesn't have the brand gravity that OpenAI does. OpenAI has Sam Altman, the media attention, the narrative. When OpenAI sneezes, it's a headline. When Anthropic ships something genuinely better, it gets a few upvotes on Reddit and then disappears. Second, the benchmarks themselves are starting to feel less important to the average user. Everyone's benchmarked to death. There are so many evaluation systems now that people have benchmark fatigue. You see a number go up, you shrug, and you keep using whatever you already use. But here's why this actually matters, and why you should care even if you don't run benchmarks in your spare time. These performance gaps are starting to translate into real-world differences. If you're using Claude for complex coding tasks, you're getting fewer hallucinations and more accurate output. If you're running it on math or logic-heavy work, it's faster and more reliable. And because Claude is cheaper, especially on longer context windows, where Anthropic has been leading for months, the economics are shifting. For companies building on top of these models, switching from OpenAI to Anthropic is starting to make financial sense, not just technical sense. There's also something else happening beneath the surface. Anthropic has been much more aggressive about safety and transparency in their model development. They publish detailed research on how their models work, what they're trained on, where the failures are. OpenAI, by contrast, has become increasingly opaque. They don't release full technical details anymore. They don't publish safety research at the same rate. That gap between a company that's open about how their AI works and one that's become a black box is actually starting to matter to enterprises and researchers who need to trust what's happening under the hood. Now, I'm not saying OpenAI is finished. They're not. They've got GPT-4 in the pipeline. They've got a massive user base. They've got venture capital, and they've got momentum. But the era where OpenAI had a clear, undisputed lead on model quality, that's over. We're in a different phase now. We're in a phase where multiple companies are all building legitimately good models, and the winner isn't going to be whoever's technically the best. It's going to be whoever builds the best product, the best developer experience, and the best business model around that model. For you, the actual takeaway is this. If you've been locked into ChatGPT because you assumed it was the best option, it might be worth testing Claude for your actual use case. Not because it's always better, it's not, but because the gap has closed enough that you should be evaluating based on what works for you, not on brand reputation. Try it on your coding tasks, your writing, your research, whatever you actually use these tools for. You might find that the cheaper, faster option is also the better one. The other thing to watch is what this means for the broader AI market. If Anthropic can compete on quality while being more transparent and more principled about safety, that puts pressure on OpenAI to either match them on those dimensions or accept that they're going to lose some users to a company that's willing to be more open. That's good for everyone. Competition drives innovation, and right now, the competition in the large language model space just got real. So if you want to stay ahead of what's actually happening in AI, instead of just following whatever gets the most hype, subscribe. I break down these shifts every few days, and I promise you won't get the mainstream narrative. You'll get what's actually going on under the surface.